Hello and welcome back to World of Warcraft. My name's Lumin and right now I'm starting on my challenge mode videos. I don't know if I want to call these challenge mode guides. I guess I'm going to, because they're sort of like beginner's guides to challenge modes. I am not a super professional player. You're watching this from my point of view, so you're going to see a bunch of mistakes. You're going to see me kind of fumbling around a little bit, but you are going to see a gold run this time around on Scarlet halls. Same goes for all the other videos that I put up. They're going to be gold runs. They're going to be us getting our first gold on that specific instance. But again, we kind of just threw ourselves into this. We did prepare quite a lot. Okay, so we came into this with good gear for challenge modes. We brought all our flasks. We got DPS potions. We've obviously got the invisibility potions. We checked a bunch of guides out for each of the instances before we came to them. And I think that's really important. If you want to do challenge modes, you should seriously research every single instance before you do it. See the ins and outs of each of the zones, which mobs are dangerous, what you could potentially get to help you out, and so on and so forth. But with that said, let's get started on Scarlet halls and I guess this series. Now you're watching the video from my point of view as a Paladin tank, a protection Paladin. We've got Zohee, a discipline priest, Safflower, a destruction warlock if I'm not mistaken, Jemma, a frost mage, and finally Seyni, a rogue. That is pretty much all I know about the rogue. I seriously don't know the talent build or anything like that. I do at least obviously know which abilities they have that are useful to us, which we want to use and all that, but I know next to nothing about the classes themselves. Okay, so let's get started. I'm backing up to the end here because when you start off in Scarlet halls, you'll know this from Heroic or the normal version of the dungeon. You got to pick up one of those buckets to toss on this guard so the dogs attack it. And when you run in there, you got to actually tap the guard with a damaging ability so that you get the credit for the kill. And you'll see I kind of dodged to the side a little bit so that the dog that was chained up there would attack me as the tank instead. And it's all that happens really fast because we're obviously trying to get the time as good as possible. But at that start bit, a DPS could have potentially done the exact same thing as me, but we decided to let me as the tank do it because it's easier for me to run in and tap the mob without dying, because those dogs do a lot of damage. Now, we've already got two enemies on the counter over there. Those are the two that we got back there. And the rogue, Seyni here, he is trying to stay really close to me so he can tricks the trade, blink in or shadow step in, and get all the aggro of all those dudes onto me. Because I can't do that before I drop the shield. And that just makes this first pull on the first boss a bit easier. It's not really one of the proper bosses, these. The first real boss is Hound Monster Brawn. But this guy here, he can be a little iffy as a tank if you don't immediately get aggro on all those mobs. The next part up ahead here with the buckets of meat, we're going to get 2 more kills. Because, once again, we want to try and get the kill count to a certain amount before the end, so we don't have to go back and get more. I chose to run around this side here. It kind of slows us down a little bit, because we could potentially already have been on the boss. But it's just much safer sending the tank around the corner with an angry hound instead of a DPS. The rogue, once again, Seyni handled this incredibly well. He's good at doing things without dying. And I guess any DPS could potentially do it. That little part at the start there, while it may look a little bit complicating, it becomes incredibly easy after just a couple of tries. So if you're worrying about that, don't. But now, the first boss, the Hound Master, he's incredibly simple and straightforward. As a tank, all you gotta do here is just pick up aggro on the dogs as they jump in, the obedient hounds. They don't do much damage to you as a tank, but they'll bother the DPS and they'll lower their actual damage output if they're just attacking them the whole time. But this is straight up just a DPS race. You've got to just damage him down as fast as possible while trying to keep aggro on the dogs. We use Ring of Frost here to just freeze the hounds in place for a little bit. It helps, marginally. It keeps them stuck in position and they lose out on 1 or 2 extra attacks. And that makes it a little bit easier for Zohee, our healer, to get a few extra smites or attacks in, because she doesn't have to usually heal very much on this boss, and that just, I guess, in turn speeds everything up. Now, this boss where we used our first time warp. If you're going to be doing the challenge mode, you should have at least one class that has time warp or heroism or something like that in your group. Bloodlust, that's very useful. When you get the boss down, he angers his hounds. He starts bleeding out or something, then the hounds attack him, and then you just gotta wait for this little cutscene to finish, because if you run in early here, then those guys actually start attacking you, and that's bad. This is where we do our invisibility run. You run from this side of the bottom of the stairs all the way to the other side of the bottom of those stairs. And we tried multiple different, let's just say, solutions here. We tried Shroud of Concealment with a rogue, and that just didn't work. We tried the smaller invisibility potions. They also didn't really work because it kind of got a bit iffy here, where sometimes you got out of invisibility and then the pack was just there waiting for you, and that was disastrous if one of the DPS ran in through. Now this pull specifically here is one of the more difficult ones we struggled with. I mean, that whole first part of the instance was super easy. Really easy. Once you get all that down, it's no problem. But these guys, you got to interrupt all their abilities, keep them stunned as often as you can. Basically just CC them with everything you've got. And obviously as a tank, you got to pop some cooldowns. And as a healer, the same thing applies. You got to sort of just spam heal the heck out of it while that's happening. You're not going to focus on DPSing at all there. Maybe pain suppression, something like that. But on those packs, it's super important that you interrupt everything. The defenders, they generally take a bit longer to die. You don't need to worry too much about them. They don't do that much damage. Here, you obviously have to, when you're crossing over there, watch out for that big patrol, which we're going to talk about in a second. That's the scary one. But the Arms Master, I don't know, kind of straightforward if you know what to do. And again, you should know what to do. Coming into this, you should have watched the videos and stuff. But he works the same as he does in the normal and heroic modes. He does Blades of Light. He summons ads. It's not that difficult to deal with as a tank. I don't even think as a healer or DPS it's that tough. As long as you know how the mechanics in this fight work, it's okay. I end up pulling the mobs that come from the top, usually with Avenger's Shield. You know, I try, if possible, just to toss a shield at them. But if I keep Consecrate or Light's Hammer up on the floor here, then it's okay. I can get aggro on them. The DPS knows what they're doing. Now, when Blades of Light starts, you run up to the top here, and then you run in the direction that he spins to first. Because he spins in one direction, then he spins all the way back, and then he goes all the way around, collecting the ads as he goes up. And if you've got a Defender or something like this on you at the bottom here, it's no big thing. They do hardly any damage. They are more just like a bother than anything else. He comes back down. The ads kind of get killed. Most of their health gets reduced, and then you kill him again, or you go for him again. Ideally, you'll want to take the Arms Master down before he does his second Blades of Light, because he will if you take too long. And if you are taking too long on something like that, then you know your DPS is probably not going to be enough for this kind of thing, because this, I guess, is widely considered as the easiest of the challenge mode dungeons. Now, we were kind of close to having Blades of Light start again, and if it did, that would have been bad. That would have been disastrous. And I think some groups even save their heroism or time warp for this boss, but we preferred using it in the first one. Now here, this group is the most dangerous group in pretty much all of the challenge mode dungeons we did, but somehow we managed to deal with it. I ran in there, I used Blinding Light, I tossed my hammer down on top of them immediately, and you'll see I popped Ardent Defender instantly along with Divine Protection, and then here, I started breaking Line of Sight because that obviously wastes the spells that the ones at the back are casting, then they'll come closer. It'll give us a little bit more time to DPS them down. I was fortunate enough to get aggro on all of them, and I'd say this fight just got a whole lot easier again once our group just got the proper stun rotation down, once they interrupted everything they could interrupt. And I think in that group, or in the entire instance, the Evangelists and the Evokers are by far the most dangerous. And also obviously worth noting, the Ring of Frost from Jemma, our Mage, we use it all the time. It is so good. Ring of Frost just seems to be the kind of thing that you can use in every single fight, and it'll help out. It just reduces the incoming damage so much, and as a tank, I love it. I really love it, because I can just kite the mobs into the Ring of Frost, as you'll see in just a second, and they'll miss out on one attack here or there if there's not too much AoE. Now here we were thinking to ourselves, and we were talking on Skype saying we might not be killing them fast enough, and at the same time we can handle one or two mobs here, so pulled a couple of extra in. These ones aren't too dangerous. The treasurers drop statues of some sort on your players. They do this toss statue skill. It stuns them. It's kind of bad if you get double stunned. If you get stunned and then stunned again, or if the healer gets stunned while the tank is taking damage. But for the most part, if you keep them crowd controlled, if you keep them busy, then that pull shouldn't be a big deal. And again, the rest of them also not that bad. You'll see it's just the treasurers and the guardians here, and they don't do a lot of damage. They're pretty easy to tank. It's again just those random stuns that could be problematic. And with this pull, I think I might have missed one on the left-hand side in the room there. If I did, I'll probably pull it on the way out. But we could have handled a bit more here. We really could have handled a tiny bit more. And I think that just in general, if we had killed these little groups of trash a bit quicker, we would have been, I don't know, a little bit less pressured on some of the bosses. But we're already getting pretty close to the end here. As you can see, we're 32 out of 50 enemies at the moment. We just have the last boss left. So things are going well. Still 4 minutes 20 on the clock. It's not bad. And it seems like I did pull the one from the other side. That's that patrol, the treasurer that walks in and out. Now, this guardian, if we had to stand here and just damage him down, wait for him to die before moving on, that would have been catastrophic for our timer. But what we were waiting for instead was just for Zohee, the Discipline Priest, to use her Restorative Amber, so she could get her mana up. And again, a Discipline Priest seemed to work out really well for us in challenge modes, because they could use Spectral Guys as Priest, and that could get them out of combat. Then they could use the Restorative Ambers that you get from the Klaxi in Pandaria, and that just helped out a lot. You'll see her using it all the way through the challenge mode dungeons, and it's just great. These packs here, there's nothing special about them. There's nothing interesting or important to say about them. The pupils, the scholars, they are incredibly basic. They do a bit of damage if they hit you, but as a tank, I mean, your gear should be good enough if you plan on doing challenge modes anyway to not really worry too much about it. I do, with most of these slightly bigger pulls, try to just keep blinding light and stuns off on as many of them as I can. I was slacking a bit with the stuns because this was our very first challenge mode dungeon that we attempted, but that's always something you just want to do. Now with the Flame Weaver, he is, again, one of the easier bosses in all of the challenge modes. If you're going for a gold run, he's not that difficult. It's just something that takes 1 or 2 tries for you to learn how the mechanics of the fight work. So when he casts Bookburner, you gotta interrupt that, else it lights up half the room, and when he starts casting his spinny flame thing, which you'll see in just a second, then you can't actually go into that side of the room. It's called Greater Dragon's Breath. So he's just gonna spin around in a circle, and that's that. Exactly the same as the first boss in Temple of the Jade Serpent. You just have to keep moving, keep damaging, and once it's done, he goes back to burning books. That's it. It's an incredibly easy boss, and I think if you make it here with a good 2 minutes on the clock, you should be fine for gold if your damage is good enough. And if it's not, I mean, you can see that our time warp cooldown is going to be ready in 40 seconds. So even if we didn't have enough DPS on this fight, we would have had time warp, and then we would have been able to finish him off regardless. The Pyroblast can be interrupted, so if you've got an interrupt ready, which I didn't have there, my Rebuke was on cooldown. I had used it on the previous one. If you have someone like a Rogue or whatever, or Mage with Counterspell, you can actually interrupt that, prevent a little bit of damage. But again, for me, as a Paladin tank, Devotion Aura was used, works really well. Divine Protection was used, works really well. And that's that. Gold. We actually had a reasonably good time. 11 minutes, 32 seconds. Nothing like a round best or anything, but we were very proud because this was our first ever gold. We started on this, and you'll see as we progress through the challenge mode gold dungeons that our group gets a little bit better at doing things. Our stun rotations, our AoE stun rotations get better. My tanking abilities definitely improve. Everything just starts getting smoother. We actually started trying less, as in we had less tries per dungeon. I think on the later ones, on the last 3 or 4 we did, we only did probably, I'd say, 5 to 6 tries in total. Then we started getting into the gold territory, which was, for us, again, really cool. But that's it. That's Scarlet Halls on gold from the point of view of a protection paladin that's kind of new to all of this. And I think it went reasonably well. You guys can let me know what you think. I realize it's a bit difficult, like, narrating or commentating over something like this because everything happens so fast. Everything happens really quickly, and, you know, when you're doing it yourself, it doesn't feel like it is, but it happens really quick, and it's difficult to point out each and every single little thing that you gotta watch out for. So maybe, hey, by the time I'm doing the last couple, I'll be able to talk fast enough to explain everything correctly. But there you go. If you have any questions, you can feel free to leave them below, and I will answer them. Again, check back here soon for more, give it a like, share it, and do all that other good stuff. Most importantly though, happy doing those gold challenge modes. Happy that.